It's me, Gary. And tonight, I've broken out my old corduroy jacket. It's probably like from the 1980s. It is ancient. And I love the feel of the corduroy. It has that soft feel, and there's a pleasant sensation you get from following the lines of the corduroy. Anyhow, and the only reason I'm wearing it is because I want to, and because I can. And you can't see it, because my focus is going to be here on the table. But I'm wearing a t-shirt under this. And it's a Minion t-shirt. A Minion t-shirt. And why a Minion t-shirt? Because I can, and because I felt like it. And that's kind of this place that I'm going with this, is in being yourself and doing what you want to do. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because lately I have been meeting so many wonderful, beautiful people who aren't quite themselves. You know, those facades that people put up because they're trying to be something that they're not. And maybe it's because of societal expectations, or the feeling that they need to be accepted by their peers. And my only advice that I can give is be yourself. And when you are yourself, when you choose the freedom to be yourself, it doesn't really matter what anybody thinks. People will just gravitate towards you, even more so, because usually people know when somebody is not being real. And it's really important to allow yourself that freedom. It really is liberating. And I'm not saying this as a criticism. I'm saying this because there's so many wonderful, incredible people out there who choose to not be themselves and to act like something else. And if they could just punch through that wall and allow themselves to truly show themselves for who they are, it relieves so much stress in life. And that's the whole point of living. When you wake up tomorrow, you're going to be waking up with yourself. You are the only person that you have to impress. And in 70 or 80 years from now, when you're looking back upon your life, you're not going to be thinking about who you were portraying yourself as. You are going to be thinking, why couldn't I have just been the person that I truly was? Trust me on this one, it is liberating, and it really does relieve an awful lot of stress out of your life. And that's all I'm going to say upon this topic, at least during this video. I don't know if you can see, but the tea is ready. And it's the oolong tea tonight. My absolute favorite. I'm trying out a microphone that you saw me unbox in one of my earlier videos. I've used it to record sound effects in the past, but I've never actually used it to record the main part of a video, and I thought I would give it a go. I've seen a few other YouTubers use it. It is the Tascam DR05, the linear PCM recorder, and the sound is pretty nice, but I'm wondering about the noise level after I get this done. I guess we're going to find out once I get this video up and on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, I have had the privilege of going through a lot more videos lately, and I have bumped into a few that I thought were worth talking about here. If you haven't visited the YouTube channel of China Girl ASMRtist, I noticed she's been putting up a couple videos of her doing children's crafts, and they're absolutely wonderful. Lots of triggers, and quite a departure from the usual stuff you see of her painting, and of course those videos are quite incredible as well. Another YouTuber that I've visited, I guess you can say I've taken a trip down the rabbit hole. The White Rabbit ASMR. Really difficult to describe this one. I bumped into one video and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, wow, she's really using this really crummy camera, and it's really like grainy and staticky. And as I watched the video, I just got more and more triggered. And it took a bit, but I finally figured out that all of that stuff was intentional, and that her equipment is really top-notch stuff. And she's just, to me, compared to me, she's like a master editor. And I'm really impressed with all of her other videos as well. The White Rabbit ASMR, definitely worth checking out. I also mentioned that Yanghaiying has been experimenting with voiceovers. It's not much of an experiment anymore. The videos are really getting to be exceptionally high quality, and I'm really impressed with them. Who else have I been listening to? There's one artist who is quite popular on YouTube, WhisptersRed ASMR. And her stuff is definitely worth checking out, especially if you like the kind where the trigger is hairbrushing. She's got quite a few hairbrushing videos that are quite triggering. And now here is a bit of a controversial one. Some people love this stuff and some people really don't like this stuff. So I am going to drop this name on you and allow you to choose for yourself. And this is one of those artists that like to do a lot of food videos, but honestly she does more as well. And her name is the Waterwhispers. And recently she had a trip to the Netherlands, and she was trying out a lot of the food over there. So if you have a food trigger for ASMR, the Waterwhispers is definitely one channel that you will want to check out. That's the Waterwhispers. And now this one, this magazine that I've pulled out is one of those old magazines, Pulp Fiction magazines, that goes way back in time. And let's see if there's a date. I remember the last time I checked one of these, the year was written on the spine. This is going back to January 14th, 1939. And it features Edgar Rice Burroughs' Men of Mars. You might recognize Edgar Rice Burroughs as the author of Tarzan. And there was a recent movie a couple years ago about John Cabot of Mars. Well, that was Edgar Rice Burroughs, and actually a part of this particular series, The Men of Mars. John Cabot on Mars. And another story that they have in here are Red Commanders. The Comanche Braves Ride Wild Tonight by Foster Harris. And of course it's in a protective sleeve because pulp fiction magazines fall apart quite readily. Whether you're taking really good care of them or not, I'll let you know right up front. The condition this magazine is in exactly the same magazine it was in when I picked it up. I don't really pick these up as investments, more as of an interest that I have in science fiction and fantasy and history. And if I buy a magazine, I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to read it. So I don't think I would want something that was in mint condition that I would be afraid to take out. And if memory serves me correct, the cover on this is actually not even attached. This is in very, very, well, by my standards, poor condition. And you'll notice on this magazine it has the same kind of artwork that you'll see in a lot of the pulp fiction magazines. Very, very colorful with very bright, vibrant reds. Almost a chocolate brown on the stock of the gun. And the Argosy title is almost like a dandelion yellow. And I know that a video camera can't pull out all of those colors so vibrantly as what they're like in real life. So that's why I am describing them to you. And a lot of warmer shades of different colors throughout the entire magazine cover. I've got back in January 14th in the late 30s, this magazine would only have cost you 10 cents. So let's flip this open. And of course, these magazines are loaded with ads. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what makes the magazine more workable more for me. I think I like the ads just as much as I like the stories. Having the media background that I do, I often find I get more entertainment out of commercials than I do out of programs on TV. And that extends all the way to magazines as well. You still have time, but better hurry. The February issue of Double Detective will be on the newsstands only until January the 11th. And that again will cost you 10 cents. What will you be doing 1 year from today? Well, I will not be born according to the date on this particular magazine. Here's this ad here is from the International Correspondence Schools, Box 2218F, Scranton, Pennsylvania. Without cost or obligation. And these are the kinds of ads where you would actually check off anything that you wanted, and you would fill out your name and your address, the city that you're from, the state that you're in, position. That must be your job. And they even have a little underscore here for residents of Canada. So these magazines were very, very far-reaching. In answering advertisements, it is desirable that you mention Argosy. Wow, this magazine is really falling apart. There is not much left to it. The beginning of the magazine is always full of all sorts of ads. We'll even call it out as the advertising section. Make me prove that I can train you at home for a good job in radio. And that is the media that I was involved with way back when, back in the old days. I used to spin the discs and play the music. It was a lot of fun, but it was also a very, very stressful job and not very well paying. And I believe there are probably still some colleges that actually teach radio broadcasting, but most of them have expanded to be more all-encompassing when it comes to various media. And in this particular magazine, well, it looks like they've got about 10 different stories here, and none of these names really ring a bell with me. However, it would not surprise me if a lot of these names were actually pen names or aliases, like Bearded Loon's short story by Captain Dingle. I don't think so. Men of Daring, True Story in Pictures, Stookie Allen, and with Johnston McCulley, J. Wentworth, Tilden, Charles Dorman, Cornell Woolridge, and of course the main feature would be Edgar Rice Burroughs. Edgar Rice Burroughs was quite famous already at the time. The original Tarzan movie that came out was a silent movie, so I'm guessing that by January the 14th, 1939, the original Tarzan movie had already been produced. He married no angel. The January 14th all-story love tales, 10 cents. There were millions of these Pulp Fiction magazines produced, and they tried to appeal to all genres, all ages. It was quite a competitive field. Be a railway traffic inspector. And I remember these ones when I was a kid. Are you inventive? The old inventor ads. In fact, I think I might have even seen one recently, maybe on Facebook or something like that, social media, I believe it was. And most of the time they're a bit of a con job, trying to get your money. Amazing Growflex shoes. Earn big commissions, and your own shoes free. And even medical ads too. Asthma, right for free trial offer. One thing that I will give these magazines credit for, I very rarely saw any typos or spelling errors. The editing was actually quite decent. And The Eye of Doom by Cornell Woolridge. And again, when you go into these magazines, you'll notice first off that the cover is exceptionally bright and vibrant, all sorts of different colors. And then the rest of the magazine on the inside is actually all in black and white. Although this one now is more like a brown. I would have loved to have seen this magazine when it was first produced. internet back then, so reading material was not so easy to come by. Going to a store to pick up a book or going to a library was a very common thing. I love the smell of these old magazines. I don't know if you've ever been in a used bookstore, but you go over to some sections where they have some of the older books and the smell just, I don't know, there's just something about the smell of books and the tangibility of books as well, the feel of the paper under your hand. It just feels much more real than when I'm reading something digitally. And I do have a lot of books digitally, especially from my Anne McCaffrey collection. I just find that it's easier to carry my phone around with me than it is to carry a bunch of books. So that's the advantage of the digital library. I do find them harder to read, though. The thieving escargot lies at the bottom of the sea. The Eye of Doom. The episode of the Hungry Knife. Paris, 1791. Backache. Leg pains may be danger sign. The Synthetic Men of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And I remember at one point I had all of these books, the entire collection. It was quite a lengthy series. And he was very, very prolific. And here we go. John Carter alone has the power to thwart it. There's always something evil happening that he had to overcome, saving the damsel in distress. This was actually the second installment of this story. And I wonder if this would have been a first printing. I'd have to go back. And as I think about it, I'm thinking, I think the original printing is not copyright anymore. I think it's public domain. So this might be like a second printing. I would have to double check on that. Don't quote me on it. And when I purchased this magazine, I did read it from top to bottom. And not because I find this stuff extremely entertaining, not the story itself. I just find it interesting how people lived back in the day and the material that they chose to read. I mean, back then, thinking that putting a person on the moon would be a possibility was something that was completely outrageous. And here you have all of these dreamers of science fiction coming up with stories that were so outrageous back then, but perhaps by today's standards aren't quite so outrageous. Gloves for the governor. And when I buy something like this was in a flea market, I believe, I often wondered who had this before I did. What kind of a life did they have? Were they still alive? Are they still alive today? Did it get passed on to their children? Wound up bringing it to like a used bookstore or to a collector who eventually got rid of them. The story is not just in the words, or the history is not just in the words. The history is in where this has been Who's had it in their hands? Have you a seagull in your sink? Swamp Hound Charles Tenney Jackson, author of Sharks for Breakfast, Palmetto Gold, etc. It was such a different world back then. A master of romance pens a great story of mystery and adventure along the Canadian border, death due north. I wonder if they throw a Mountie into the story somewhere. Things were very cliched back then. There had to have been a Mountie in it. Red Commanders. You'd never get away with writing this kind of stuff today. Our standards have changed. So much so. It was a very different time. Men of daring, master of speeds. Captain Easton? I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that. In 1935, he shattered 8 world records and received the Sir Henry Seagrave Trophy for the most outstanding demonstration of the possibility of transport by air, land, or water. Wow. And I imagine that this is going to go back into the plastic sleeve. And I will put it away, and it probably won't ever come back out again until something makes me decide to do so. Maybe I'll give this to my son when I get older, pass it on. It's probably been passed on a couple of times already. Vacuumatic scores again, sets new coast to coast or coast to Chicago record. New supercharged principal saves gas. Well, even back then, people were thinking about saving money on gas. Nothing like it. Fits all cars. Free details. Bob McKenzie. Now that's funny. Bob McKenzie was a cliched Canadian character. And cigarette ads. You won't see them anymore today. And that is going to be it for this magazine. And if you like these magazines, I will keep pulling out my magazines one at a time. I have a number of them, not like hundreds or anything like that, but I do have a number of them. And I'm not afraid to take them out and share what I do have with you. And we can both inhale the smell of a used publication again and look at the colorful